everybody, and welcome back to my tiny basement kitchen. I'm Tamara Jones, your baker in the basement. Today we're going to be tackling, well, I say tackling as if it's going to be difficult, a very easy shortbread recipe. I can't take any credit for this recipe. It's literally just off of the back of the box of the Canada Cornstarch. I don't know if they still print the boxes with this recipe on the back. I haven't been able to find it recently, but it's ingrained into my brain from all the years that we've been making these shortbreads in my family. Today's ingredients are 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 cup of icing sugar, 1 cup of cornstarch, again Canada Cornstarch or Fleischmann's, but whatever you can get is fine, and 1.5 cups of salted butter. I know in most recipes you would use unsalted butter. I have a habit of using salted and just adjusting the amount of salt. Whatever works best for you is fine. I find because this recipe doesn't actually have any salt in it, that using the salted butter really helps balance the flavors a little better. In any case, what we're going to do is take all our dry ingredients and sift them over the butter. Just before I do that, I do want to just kind of beat the butter up a little bit. It is quite soft, but I just want to make sure that I'm not going to have, you know, a solid block or a solid chunk of butter underneath my nice sifted ingredients. Okay. Doesn't really matter what order you do these in, as long as they all get in there. It's like it's snowing. Whee! And just as we get to the end, I'm just using the back of a spoon to push through the last little bit. Okay, now the hardest part of this recipe is just getting all that dry ingredient, all those dry ingredients, combined with the butter. It is going to take a little while. You can use the back of your spoon to kind of press them together. I find that once it starts coming together, it's easier to just get in there with your hands and just kind of play with it like it's Play-Doh until it makes a dough. So as you can see, it's very chunky and dry to start, and it is going to take a little while to incorporate. As you can see, as I've been mixing for a few minutes now, it's starting to look crumbly. You can see the chunks of butter are still there, but they're getting a lot smaller. And we do want to work those chunks in. This isn't like a pie crust where we want flaky. We really want this to be a soft, melt-in-your-mouth kind of dough. Alright, so I feel like I've done about as much as I can with the spoon. I'm going to get in there with the 10 utensils the universe gave me. And just the way I find it works, you just kind of reach in and just squeeze it together. See, it's already starting to get doughy. And you just rotate your bowl with your hands and squeeze. I mean, this is my technique. You don't have to do it this way. Just mess with it until it's dough, you know? Just make it dough. As long as you make it dough. Oh my gosh, I didn't just say that. Been hanging out with the husband too much. He's a king of puns. Oops. Making a bit of a mess, but hey, who cares? We're having fun, right? Gonna have to clean the kitchen afterwards anyway. Might as well have fun. Make a mess. What was it Miss Frizzle used to say on the Magic School Bus? I'm asking Camera Guy John over here. Camera Guy John. What did Miss Frizzle used to say on the Magic School Bus?
Take chances, make mistakes, get messy.
Oh, that's not how she said it, though. How'd she say it, though? Take chances, make mistakes, get messy. Maybe I watched that show a little bit too much when I was a kid, but that stuck with me. Have fun. Life's only so long, you might as well have fun. Alright, so you're going to end up with dough stuck to your hands. That's all part of the magic. Again, if you don't want to use your hands, you don't have to. You can do this with a spoon or a spatula or a paddle attachment on your mixer set to low if you have a mixer. Whatever way works for you. Just so we can see that it has now formed a nice dough that clings together well. It's still a little bit crumbly, but that's fine. That's what you want. So usually I would cover my pans in parchment paper before I start putting cookies on them, but that is all the parchment paper I have. So that'll be on the next grocery list. For now, though, I'm not too concerned. These cookies don't tend to stick that badly. It's just easier for cleanup if you have the parchment paper. So line your pans if you're worried about them sticking, or if you don't want to have to scrub them after. All right, so I've just got a couple of cookie trays here. Technically, they're jelly trays because they have the rim on them. Whatever, they fit cookies. Just very roughly cutting my parchment. I'm not worried about it being pretty, because it's not part of the final product anyway. So there's a few ways that you can do these cookies. You can roll them out flat and cut them out. I'll do that in a second. But first, I do want to show you the way I've just always been doing them. So you just want a little ball of dough on your tray. Whether you form that with a scoop or with spoons, doesn't really matter. I should probably mention, I mentioned that this recipe is from the Canada Cornstarch box. I've actually doubled what was on that box, and this recipe is really good for that, for doubling, for halving, because the measurements are so simple, because it's half a cup of this and a cup of that and 3/4 cups of that. So you can easily make a 1/3 recipe, make a double recipe, what have you. I'm making a bigger batch today because I'm going to save some for Christmas. It happens to be December right now, so that is coming up. These do freeze quite well. They also will survive at room temperature in a airtight container for like 2 or 3 weeks, I'd say. And they stay nice and buttery. Now you can just go from how they are right now, where they're kind of rough looking and rustic. If you want a smoother look, just pick up each ball, give it a quick little round with your hand. Just a little roly-roly, little press. Again, does not have to be perfect. And then you just take a fork and gently press it down. If it sticks, don't worry. If the sticking really bothers you, you can dip the fork in flour or icing sugar. Okay, so once you've got them all rolled, you've got them all crisscrossed, you can just pop them right in the oven at this point. I personally like to add little holly sprinkles. You can add any kind of sprinkles you want. I have a big collection. I've got my little holly sprinkles. Also got some Christmas nonpareils, which are just the little ball sprinkles. And I can just sprinkle them on. Don't worry if they spill onto the pan. They're not going to hurt anything. If you really want, you can pick up the parchment after and roll any unmelted sprinkles off of it. And then reuse them if you wish. So these are going to go in the oven for 20 minutes. And we're going to play around with some other ways to make them. Alright. Time to get serious. As if I'm ever serious. So I've got a few just Christmassy shaped cutters here. Christmas happens to be coming, so you could do these for any occasion, really. Just for having, like, friends over for tea. These go so good with tea. Or hot cocoa. My Uncle Tony loves these, so when he comes to visit, I make them. Doesn't really matter if it's near a holiday or not. They're just fun cookies. So I'm going to roll out some of this dough, which I have never done before. I have never attempted to do these rolled. I've always done shape them into a ball, crisscross them down with a fork. So this is new and terrifying territory. Live on camera, Tamara Jones tries a cookie technique she's never tried before. Alert the media. Don't really alert the media. So according to the instructions from Canada Cornstarch, we just want to roll this out to about a 1/4 inch thick. You can get your little spacers to put beside the dough to make sure you're at exactly a 1/4 inch. But I'm just estimating here. That looks like about a 1/4 inch to me. So I'm just going to go with it. Let's see what happens. Alright, so with cookie cutters, you usually want to dip them in a little bit of flour. If they don't stick in the cutter like they are right now, which is making them really easy to move, you can just pick them up with a spatula, pick them up with a fork. This dough is actually holding together shockingly well. I was worried it was going to be too crumbly. See, we just got one. We just got one here that didn't come up. But we can just grab a fork, move it over with its friends. So we'll get some trees going. Okay, if you have scraps left, and you almost always will, just re-roll them with a little bit of fresh dough. And you don't want to re-roll them too many times, because the more you work dough, the tougher that it's going to end up. See, there's some of you probably already know about gluten for several reasons, but when you develop gluten, that means you let gluten get wet. Gluten lives in wheat flour, which is in here. You let gluten get wet, and you move it around, and it develops into these big, long protein strings. And those big, long protein strings are great if you're making bread, because they give it strength so it can hold all those nice bubbles. But if we're making shortbread, if we're making cookies, we really want them to be tender and soft. Even if you're making crispy cookies, if you let that gluten get too developed, it's going to make them tough. It's going to make them chewy, and not in a good way, like in a stringy, bready. Just don't overwork your dough, okay? Just be gentle with your dough. Be loving, and it'll be okay. Now this next bit is something that I've another let's do something for the first time on camera and let everyone see kind of moment. I bought cookie stamps, which I've never ever done before. I don't totally know how they work, but I think I'll dip one in some flour and I'll stamp and I'll see what happens. So I'm going to press it until it feels like it's gone all the way in and draw it back. Hey, that's pretty good. Some dough did get stuck in here. I'm going to fish that out with a toothpick and keep going. Make sure I flour it very well. Try again. Okay, it came out better that time. So see, if at first you don't succeed, stamp another cookie. Oh, John, get a close-up of this. Okay, so we're having slightly varied results, but some of these are looking real good. Not bad for a first try. Now, again, this is the first time I'm doing this. These stamps might work better with a firmer dough. They might work better if I refrigerated the dough a little bit first, or if I greased the stamps instead of flouring them. But so far, I'm pretty happy. So I've got a cutter here that is just about the same size as the stamp. And I've got a cutter that's a little bigger than the stamp. And I'm gonna do them both because I'm not sure which one I like better just yet. I like the bigger one, I think. And again, we've got some cute cookies. Why not add some sprinkles? Because I'm a sprinkle maniac. So I'm just going to add some white sanding sugar to my snowflakes. Make them sparkle. And I know this dough does kind of puff and deflate when it bakes, so we'll see how well it holds the stamp. Again, it's all an experiment. Yes, this is a different set of Christmas nonpareils that I have, because I'm an insane person. Now, you'll notice a lot of the sprinkles are kind of running off. Don't fret. If your sprinkles aren't adhering, you can just grab a little water and a pastry brush. Just a little. You don't want to soak them, but just give them a light brushing. And then try again with your sprinkles. There, that's looking a lot better. And I'm not going to worry about the ones that didn't stick, because you know what? That'll just be a little snack for me later. That's fine. You can also just gently press them in. Gently spread and press them. And again, you could leave these plain. You could do them with colored sugar. It just happens to be, you know, right before a holiday and in a pandemic. And I couldn't get colored sugar. It was all sold out. So I've just got the last bit of dough here. And I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing. Just rolling it out, stamping it, cutting it. Just having fun, man. Remember when you were a kid? You messed around with Play-Doh? You'd sculpt and make shapes. I just need one of those Play-Doh machines. You know, the ones where they had the bald heads, but you press down and the Play-Doh would come out. Let's do that with cookie dough and see what happens, huh? I had one when I was a kid. I don't know where it is now. Out there somewhere. You do need to flour your rolling pin and the top of your dough pretty frequently. You might have noticed when I was doing those star ones that there was one that had a little dip in the top, and that was from the dough had stuck to the rolling pin and then caused that dip when I rolled it back over the dough. So again, that's not the end of the world. I mean, cookies have dips in them sometimes, you know? What are you going to do? But if you're concerned about that, you know, just wipe off your rolling pin between rolls. So switching stamps. I've got a cute little tree-themed cutter that I'm going to try. Let's see how it goes. Oh no! Oh no! Ah! Crap! Alright. So it didn't go well. That's okay. Where's my toothpick? That's fine. It's fine. The tree has some very fine lines in it between the levels of branches. So I'm just going to really get in there and flour it good and try that one more time. Maybe I'm not going to press quite as hard. Okay, better. So you can see this one is the one that tore, just ripped itself right out. That's the second shot. So maybe my stamps just need a little breaking in. Just like anything, it looks like stamping cookies takes a little bit of practice, which is fine. Because frankly, this is pretty fun. So I don't mind doing it a few times over. Okay, so like I said, you don't want to overwork your dough. So this is the last time I'm going to roll it out. Any scraps I have left after this roll, I'm just going to do the ball and fork method. Alright, trying out my final stamp, which is a cute little gingerbread man. Okay, let's see what happens. Hey, he's pretty cute. That turned out better than either of the first tries, or the tree or the snowflake. Probably because it's a much simpler pattern. There's less little places for things to stick. But yeah, he's super cute. Okay, so while I've been doing these, my first tray has come out of the oven. We'll have a look at that in a minute. Like I said, when we're down to our last little bit of dough, I'm just going to do it with a spoon. Just return to the ball method. And I know I was using a scoop earlier, but I threw it in the sink. And I'm just too lazy. So if these are a slightly different size, they're a slightly different size. And somehow life will go on. But yeah, when you're doing it with a spoon, literally just grab a spoonful and roll it into a ball. Super simple. Try to make them the same size. They'll bake more evenly if they're the same size. But if one's a little bigger, well, then somebody gets a treat. Okay, I know I said I was going to do the fork and ball method, but I just want to try something. I want to see what happens if I try to flatten the ball with the stamp. Not bad. Not great. I think the stamp definitely works better with a roll and cutout. But hey, that's what experimenting is for. You find out what works, you find out what doesn't, and you move on. So these ones, I don't think that I'm going to do sprinkles on all of them, because I want to see how the stamps come out without sprinkles, see how they rise up. Okay, so just like every other pan, it's going to go in the oven for about 20 minutes at 300 degrees, and then we'll be back to see the finished result. All right, after about an hour, everything's baked, everything is cooled, and we're ready to see how things turned out. So first we have the cookies that I did the way I always do them, which is the ball and fork method. And you can see that they're still white on top. They've turned this beautiful blonde golden brown on the bottom. And that is basically what a perfect, in my opinion, shortbread cookie looks like. Now, the pressed ones, you can see they came out a little bit darker. They're a little more brown than I would generally want them. Still totally edible, still completely delicious. Just aesthetically, you know, not quite as pretty as I think the more blonde ones are. You can see the snowflake here with its sparkly white sugar. I think that turned out really pretty. Now, Mr. Gingerbread Man, although he was the easiest stamp to use, the impression didn't come out very strongly. So I'm going to try him again with some other doughs and see if they work better. Another thing that could have made these turn out with a more the tree one actually looks pretty good. But another way to make the imprints come out a little more solidly is once you've stamped them and cut them out, to actually refrigerate them a little bit before you bake them, because that helps the dough to spread and puff less, so it would hold the shape better. Maybe I'll try that next time. In the meantime, let's check out our regular cutouts. And because they're stars and trees, of course, the points did get a little bit over brown. So that's a little more brown than I would like it. But they're not burned. They're just golden. So these are still fine too. And you can see with this star and this tree that they have a lot more sprinkles. There's a tiny bit of color bleed on some of those sprinkles because these are the ones that were brushed with water. So that's the payoff. The trade-off is that you get a little bit of color bleed. But I think it looks great, so I'm not worried about that. And then the more naked tree that did not get the water wash before baking. So that's 3 different ways to cut or shape your shortbread before baking, and the ways that it all turns out. Next time I make these, I guess because these are flatter, is why the cutouts and the stamped ones came out a little bit darker. So next time I'll be reducing the cooking time on those by 2 to 3 minutes, keeping a better eye on them in the last few minutes of baking, so they get to that golden point without getting a little too brown. But I think that today's experiments were pretty much a success, and it was an experiment, so the fact that we got some differing results is good. We all learned something today. And hey, for me being in the kitchen, it's all about learning, it's all about experimenting and having fun. So I hope you had some fun watching this video today. If you did, please consider hitting like and subscribe so you can keep up to date with whatever I put up next. The holidays are coming, so I'm hoping to have a couple more cookie videos out. Hoping to do gingerbread. I've never done gingerbread before, so fingers crossed that I'll get that out to you soon. And in the meantime, keep baking. I hope you give this a try. I hope you have a great time. And thanks so much for watching. See ya.